said that many people under the age of 30 tend to make the most financial mistakes. Many of us are young graduates who will soon be entering the job market, and just the idea of taxes and financing can be quite daunting. Today on this episode of Chalk Talk, we'll be focusing on personal finance taxes as well as investments aimed at graduates. And we are joined today by Schalk Duvenage, who is the owner of Momentum Financial Wellness Practice. Thank you for joining us today, Schalk.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, you are the owner of Momentum Financial Wellness Practice in the Winelands area. You're also an experienced advisor and also a wealth manager. What exactly does your job entail?
Well, over the years in the financial industry that I was fortunate enough to land in, the one thing that became very apparent to me was the fact that what we as a general public perceive as the role of a financial advisor and what they actually need to do for the client is quite different. There's an immense responsibility on financial advisors to make sure that not only their clients are protected in general when you think about a financial advisor or broker as somebody that sells you a life policy, etc. Because that's a very, very small part. Those are only tools in protecting people. The actual role of a financial advisor is to take path with their clients to a road of financial freedom.
And I know that you used to work as a risk analyst and now you're today at Momentum. Can you just give us a brief description of that journey from where you started out to where you are today?
I started at the bank. I did some risk work there, and later on I moved into financing in the financing field. In the late 90s, I joined the financial advisor fraternity. As we went along in that journey, I got to a point where I realized that hang on, there's more to financial preparation, financial guidance for clients than just the product itself. And that's when I started M&S Consultancy, which had the role of doing again a little bit of analytical work in the risk and investment fields, but more from a client perspective than a company perspective.
And just when it comes to the concept of finance, what would you say are some of the basic concepts to understand for someone who isn't really familiar with the field?
Well, I think that it would hugely depend on who I'm speaking to when I try to give some guidance or advice when it comes to that. Each of us understand finance is different. We understand money differently. So it's very relevant to the person that I would be talking to. If I were to talk to a younger group of people, I would try and lay down the basics of what finances entail, the basic principles that you need to look at, not to make those huge mistakes in life. And I think the very first one is that one should make sure that the income that you are earning is protected. You might find your first job, and in finding that job, you will think that you've got a guaranteed income. But things happen in life, and because of that, one needs to be prepared, as prepared as possible. So I always say to the guys that I talk to, the first thing you do is you start saving up so that you have at least 3 months' income put away. If something happens to the company that you're working for, or you decide to move on, or whatever the case might be, you've actually got that backup until you can find something else. Then there is also the insurance products that you can use. Income protection is one of the paramount and most important risk covers that you can take out as a young person. The second thing that I would say is that stay away from debt. We tend to want everything as quickly as possible. And yes, you do get good debt. If you want to start a business, you might have to take out a loan. But if you can avoid bad debt, things that doesn't bring an income for you, just stay away from it as much as possible. And if you have to, like for instance, a lot of guys have to buy the first car, pay it off as quickly as possible, because it's not something that's to your benefit. So I think those are the two major points that I can say. Something that I might add, and I see this with a lot of people, is budgeting. It's not as difficult as when we think to draft a budget. It's simple. You know more or less, or keep track of what you spend every month. See where your money is going. And you do that for 1 or 2 months, and you'll know exactly where your money is going to. And the moment that you know where your money is going to, you can start managing your money. And if you manage it correctly, then you can actually have a successful financial future. Otherwise, it's just going to keep on disappearing.
And just on the topic of young people not budgeting, what would you say are some of the most common mistakes people under 30 tend to make when it comes to money?
Besides budgeting, I'd say the first thing that, and it's not only young people, but I think it's all of us, it's human nature. We think we have more time than what we do have. If you start once you start understanding how money works, and you must have heard the concept of compound interest. So, fairly simple concept, but very, very powerful. Unfortunately, there's a very, very important ingredient in compound interest, and that is time. So, if you think about it, the average graduate got about 480 paychecks until retirement only. And that's preciously few to actually build up enough wealth to be able to retire. So the moment that you understand that, you also understand that every month that you say, not this month, next month, you're actually wasting an immense opportunity to make that compounding of your interest work for you.
And there are also just many graduates who are going to be entering the job market very, very soon, and who would also like to do things like buy cars and buy houses, but for that you also need to sort of build a credit up until then. How would you advise any graduate to go about doing that?
Well, when you apply for a loan, the banks look at, and please, this is not my expert field, so the banks looks, when they look at you, they look for certain things. And I think firstly, stability is an important part. The amount of time that you spent in a certain residence, how long have you had your bank account, how long have you been with your job. Those things are quite important for them because it betrays stability. The more you fall around, firstly, the more difficult it is for them to find you. Secondly, you might move around between jobs quite often, which might cause you to lose your source of income. So you can't repay your debt that easily. So they look for that stability. And having said that, the longer that you are, or the older that you get, the easier it gets to cover that point if you are fairly stable in your life. Okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is affordability. They look at your budget. You have to provide them with one. And they will not give you a loan if you overextended yourself for obvious reasons. So it's not in their best interest to do that. It's also putting you in a dangerous position yourself. And the third thing is security. So unfortunately, you need to make debt to get debt.
Yes.
Alright, so, and it's a very, very frustrating concept, but that's unfortunately what the banks look for. So they want to see that you are able to repay loans. So whenever you do make debt, again, try and pay it off quicker than what the standard is. By doing that, you're showing the bank that you can actually repay your loan much easier. Make sure that your debit orders go off. The moment that the debit order doesn't go off your bank, it actually counts against you. And you sit with a credit record where you're going to battle to find somebody to finance you for at least 6 months just because of one debit order not going off. So again, the stability is important, budgeting is important, repayment of loans, those type of things is quite important.
Well, that was definitely a wealth of knowledge. And just as someone entering the financial world, we do hope that you now have a much better understanding of money, investments, and just how to generate wealth from a young age. You can join the Chalk Talk team again next week when we will be diving into yet another important topic. But until then, take care.